Alright guys, so here's the review of the Nove Modena. So this is the second watch that I've actually checked out from Nove, the first one being the Rocketeer. That was a pretty interesting piece actually. Some nice little bits and pieces with that. So if you haven't seen that video, I'll leave a link to that down in the description if you want to check it out after this one. But right up front, they sent me this watch for free, which I was actually quite surprised by, to be honest, because it isn't a cheap watch. But you'll see why when we get into it. I'm not going to spoil it now, but it is a really interesting one as well. So don't let that put you off. If you're just here for budget watches, I know that's basically what my channel is pretty much for, but every now and then I'll chuck in some interesting pieces which are a bit more expensive. So hopefully you'll find it interesting, even if you don't want to buy it, because it is an interesting one. So let's get down to it and see what I thought. Here it is. Like I said in the intro, this is the second Nove watch that I've reviewed now. It actually is the same packaging. It is really good, this, like a really nice handy case. If you haven't seen the other one, I'll leave a link to that review up here if you want to check that one out. But this is their latest release, and it is a little bit different. But we'll quickly go over what else you get in here before we get down to the watch. So you've got the user manual and we've got the warranty card. Because this was sent to me for free, it's just not been signed or dated or anything. Got a cleaning cloth. Then we've got the links I've taken out, so you can see straight away it's a pretty interesting looking bracelet on this, and it is just push pins on that. And then we have a little Nove tag, and then we have the watch. So I'll quickly take this out and then get all this out of the way. Oh, forgot to mention as well, you do actually get this in the box as well. Nice little touch. And then we've got the watch. So, like I said, this is a little bit different to the previous one I reviewed. That one was just a quartz piece. This one is actually an automatic. Their first automatic watch, in fact. So, I do really like this one. It's just a really interesting looking piece. Like, even with that case, I'm going to zoom in so you can see in a bit more detail. It's a really unique looking case. Does look really good. I've just not seen anything that intricate before. The way those lugs look as if they're almost wrapped around the case. It's really cool. And then we've even got a little Nove logo on the side there as well, which just adds to the symmetry, I think, matching the one on the crown. As for the dial, hopefully I won't get too much glare off this because it is a domed crystal on that. We'll be checking in a bit whether it's sapphire. But then we've got a really nice design on that dial as well. And with the colour of this, I don't really know what I'd call it, to be honest. As you can see, we've got a bit of a blue tinge from that AR coating on it. But the actual dial itself is like a, I don't really know what I call it, like a grey kind of, almost brown depending on the lighting conditions. But it does look good either way. And then we've got the Nove logo applied at the top, just below the 12. Got automatic printed just above the 6, and then Swiss made. The all important Swiss made. That's because the movement in this is actually a Ronda R150. Which isn't a movement I've experienced before, but I think it is a slightly lower tier one to like the SW200s and stuff like that. But you can see it is a high beat one, so it is really nice. But we'll get into that in a bit more detail a bit later on. Just quickly zoom back out. Actually, no, before I do. So with the indices, they're just like little applied silver dots almost. So we haven't got any lume on them, which is a little bit disappointing. But we've got lume on the hands, so I'll show you that later on in the lume shot. And then we've got a nice frame around that date window as well. And the hands are really nicely finished. Really crisp and clean. No issues with them at all. They do look good. Sorry about the focus on this, like I say, because of that dome and the AR, it's getting a little bit of reflection. Could do with a little bit more AR, I think. So I've zoomed back out. and show you a bit more of this bracelet. So we've also got the Nove logo on there as well, and the way that integrates is quite nice actually. So it's a butterfly clasp, but then if you do that side over first, we've got a nice little notch for that end to go into, so it just looks quite nice when it's closed. And then we've got brushed links on the outside, centre links polished, and like I said earlier, it is just a really interesting design. I do really like it. Some people might not like it because it's integrated lugs. Well, kind of. You can actually take these out. It's double screws, but we'll get onto the measurements actually, seeing as we're talking about that now. And you'll see why you probably won't. So we've got a thickness of 12.3mm, a diameter of just under 44, which does sound rather large, but we have actually got a really compact lug to lug on this, and a nice bit of curvature to that case too. Before we talk about that, I'll quickly talk about the lug width. So we've got a 24mm lug width, which isn't your usual, obviously, but like I said, you're probably not going to want to change this bracelet out anyway. If you do, it'll probably be for like a rubber strap or something. And then we've got a really compact lug to lug of 45.5, and like I say, because the curvature on that curves down really nicely, really quickly, so it does wear a lot smaller than the diameter would suggest. So let's quickly test out now whether we've got sapphire crystal on this. Using the trusty down selector 2. And yep, we have got sapphire crystal. So that is good, especially with it being that nice dome. So let's quickly talk about this movement, seeing as that is one of the really interesting parts of this watch. And there it is. There's that Ronda R150. That Swiss made movement, as you can see written around the outside. It's got all stainless steel, Swiss made. Modena automatic sapphire crystal, 200 meter water resistance, and then we got that lovely signed rotor as well, custom rotor, and it is a really nice movement too. So you can see those end links a bit better now on there as well. So they are solid too, as is the rest of the bracelet, as you kind of expect with this kind of level of watch, and it just does look really nice. So as for the specs on that movement, it's got a 40-hour power reserve, and it's also got hacking and hand winding, which I'll show you now. So unscrew the crown, which is really nice and grippy. Do you like that? Pop it out once. Change the date. Pop it out again. Second hand stopped, so we've got hacking, as I said. And then we can change the time. Pop it back in, second hand re-engages. And again, just screw that crown back down. So let's check out the Lume on this now, see what we've got. Got a little bit there coming up, but as always, let's charge it up, give it a proper chance. We've only got to charge those hands up though, because like I say, there's none on the indices because they're just applied indices like silver kind of dots. But hopefully there'll be enough on the hands, so it shouldn't be too big a deal. Because after all, that is the main bit you're going to be using anyway. And there we go. So they are pretty bright then. I think it's C3 on these, not 100% sure, it doesn't actually say on the website, but I'm fairly sure that's what it is. So it fades slightly after the initial charge, but now it stays at this level now for a decent amount of time, so it's pretty good. Obviously you're not going to be using this diving, because you haven't got the indices lit up, and you obviously don't have a dive bezel. It's not that kind of watch. So for what kind of watch it is, nice usable Lume, definitely does the job. Not the brightest, but not the worst by a long way. So they do a few different versions of this. I think they've got a PVD coated version, I think maybe, or DLC, I can't remember exactly. But they've got a black bracelet version and black case. I think they've got another dial option as well. But other than that, they're more or less the same. They do actually offer, though, surprisingly, a free engraving option. So if you do want to get that, if you want to get it as a present for someone, it's a nice option to have. Do quite like that, especially that it's free. Also, if you do want to pick one up, if you subscribe to their newsletter, you can actually get 10% off your order. So that's definitely well worth doing if you're going to get one. So speaking of that price, because this is a Swiss-made watch, obviously it's not going to be that cheap. So these are starting at $670, which I know is a considerable amount of money, especially compared to the watches I normally review on this channel. But again, you're paying for that Swiss-made, and it is a really unique design as well. Like I say, I've not seen anything like this before. They're definitely doing something a little bit different, and I do personally quite like it. But the question is, would you be willing to pay that? To help you make up your mind, let's show you what it's like on wrist. So this is what it looks like on my 7-inch wrist. And as I said earlier, it does wear a lot better than you'd suspect with that 44mm diameter, because of that really compact lug to lug, and that obviously as well really nice curvature to those lugs. It does help conform really nicely, and it is just a really nice bracelet as well. Yeah, it's a little bit blingy, but that is the kind of style of watch this is. But I do really like that bracelet. You might have to be careful with these polished mid-links, because they might scratch a little bit. I think I might have a little scratch somewhere on one of these here at the moment, but you could probably polish that out if you really wanted to, so it's not a major issue. So overall, I do really like this. Like I said before, yeah, it's a little bit expensive, but it's a Swiss watch, so you're going to be paying a bit of a premium for that. But the question is, like I said earlier, is that going to be something you're willing to do? If so, links will be down in the description as always. But that's it for this one, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.